Just gonna wait till quarter past. We'll start at a even number. Okay, Jordan, let's get rolling. Good morning. It is 10:15 a.m. and I'd like to call the special county council meeting of October 22nd to order. We acknowledge that Athabasca County is located on First Nations Treaty 6 and Treaty 8 traditional territory. We respect and honor all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples' connection to these lands, their history, language, and culture. First item of business is the approval of the agenda. Is there someone willing to make that motion? Councillor Anderson, any discussion? Seeing none on the question of the adoption of the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? The count is 8-0 and the motion is adopted. First item of business is citizen budget number 3.1. I'm not sure from administration who's going to lead that, but is there a motion forthcoming? Councillor Kapitanek has made a motion that council receives the results from the citizen budget as information. Is there any discussion? Councillor Holland.
Thank you very much. Sure appreciate the report that we have here today. A little disappointing. We hope to just probably see more engagement from people coming in, but I'm so glad to see that we had people coming in. So that's also a huge positive. Appreciate the overall, I guess, conclusion more than anything is pretty much what I see a little bit more leaning towards status quo for this budget. So that's extremely helpful and I appreciate seeing these surveys and I hope that we continue to do more of them, which will engage more public as they know that they're available and ready to go. So I appreciate all the effort and work that's gone into this. Thank you so much.
Other comments? Councillor Anderson?
In our 2024 budget, we budgeted $11,000 for the budget engagement. How much was spent on this budget engagement survey?
It was around 7,000.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, on the question of the adoption of the motion that council receives results from the citizen budget as information, all those in favor? Opposed? The count is 8-0 and the motion is adopted. We are moving on to item number 3.2, Community Hall Assistance Grant. So administration has a recommendation. Is there anyone willing to move the motion? Counselor Kapitanek? Counselor Kapitanek has moved. Okay, discussion on the item. Counselor Holland, or do you want to open it and then Counselor Holland?
I will open just with a confirming question to administration that the budget line for 2025 is reasonable and sufficient. For sure.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we do think it's reasonable and sufficient.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay, Counselor Holland, comments?
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
Counselor Anderson?
Thank you. There, I believe the names are Athabasca District Agricultural Society and Boyle End District Agricultural Society. So we'll have to amend that for the policy there. But I also just want to say, I was kind of caught off guard by the as a result, when distributing funds to each applicant, allocations were reduced to stay within the budget of 92.5. I just thought, I don't remember that coming to council, because I think this council probably would have found $10,000 somewhere to support those community halls. Just would have been an easy win for us. So can you, through the chair to administration, can you tell us which community halls seen a reduction in their payments this year?
Mr. Chair, members of council, we agree with you, Councillor Anderson. Upon looking at this, the allocations, we also had the same type of questions. And I think in defense of staff is the policy said to a maximum of 50%. So they follow that policy to a maximum. I have a copy of last year's allocations, and every association or organization took a little bit of a hit, some less than 1%, some up to 15%. It just to bring it down. So I think staff did their best to make sure that it was fair and consistent with all of the organizations.
Does that satisfy your question? Do you have a follow-up?
No, I may consider making a motion after this motion is.
Counselor Holland, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And I apologize. I didn't have my notes handy at the time when you asked the first time. Is it possible to have a copy of the comparison to what the other halls have received? Are we able to obtain that information as well?
Through the chair to members of council, yes, I can certainly supply that information.
Excellent, thank you. And just a couple more things, if I may. I just wanted to float it around a little bit with council to see how they felt. If we would be in the neighborhood to contact the town and Boyle for a letter of request of contributions towards the Ag Societies. Being that, we do a lot of funding back and forth, that maybe they might be interested in helping out with that as well. So it's just something I thought I'd throw out there to see what people thought. Those particular, for example, I do remember back in 2016, our Ag Society, the Agriplex did an amazing job for evacuees, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not just county employees county residents that are benefiting, but it is from province-wide almost, whenever we need to call on people into action and they jumped, and it's pretty amazing. So I'm really supportive of that as well. The only concern I do have with the policy on page 30 are the words, the hall services must be accessible to the residents of Athabasca County. That kind of opens up a whole other, for me, a whole other realm of different possible hall services, such as senior centers within the town of Athabasca, et cetera. So I'm wondering about the wording, which originally, when this first came forward, would be more beneficial to say, with the exception of the Athabasca District, Athabascan District Agriplex, the property must be within the Athabasca County boundary and form part of the Athabasca County assessment roll. I think that would save us a little bit from having a whole pile of inundated, requests. And again, as you mentioned on page 31, the Agriplex Hall should be named Athabascan District Agriplex. And I'm not sure if Boyle is accurate in this listing. Okay, so we just have a few corrections to make, but that's what I would suggest.
What's the intention of counts? Because I share the same concern that the way the policy is worded, this to me looks like the thin edge of the wedge. We fund seniors halls in Rochester and in Wandering River that are used by county residents. There are seniors halls in Boyle and Athabasca and well, Collington's in. Oh, yeah, but that's on here already, but that it's the thin edge of the wedge, and maybe we want to expand funding to include funding for those other facilities, or maybe we don't, but to me, we're straying a long way when we start funding a lot of buildings inside a different municipality. And the Ag Society, I think there's an argument that maybe differentiates it from the others, that it's principally membered by county residents. But so I'm not thrilled with the wording. Is that what I had to say? The other, yeah, if it's on that subject, and then maybe we'll come back because I had another comment. So what's the thought, Councillor Capitano?
Well, I was just gonna say that sometimes friendly amendment the recommended budget as amended. I agree with you have that exception, and so that's why the average that much.
Okay, so let's, Councillor Holland is are you prepared to move an amendment to change the language to say with the exception of the, well, it needs to be unanimous, so is there any objection to changing that to read with the exception of the Athabasca and District Agricultural Society, the property must be within Athabasca County boundary, etc. Okay, there's no objections to that. So Leah, can we amend the original motion to read with that change of wording? Or you can do it as an amendment and just record the amendment as receiving unanimous consent, either way. That might be clearer. The Councillor Gerlich.
I was just wondering whether there would be any consideration, when you look at the communities like Athabasca, for example, the facilities in there are 50% supported by the town and 50% supported by the county in most respects. And the same in Boyle. Our contributions to both those municipalities are very significant. When you get out into the county, there is only support from one side. They're sitting there with 50% of the support that most other communities have. And with the changing in demographics, I can recall when I was on council in the 90s, our population was over 10,000. Now it was 6 or 69 or somewhere in that area, 30% reduction. And there are fewer and fewer people. The old established families from these communities are kind of gone now, to a very large extent. And there's a lot of people coming in that really aren't fitting into the community. Like there's people that have moved into a house, they've been there 2 years and I don't even know what they look like. I've never seen them, that type of thing. And so I think the responsibility is falling on fewer and fewer shoulders, and the ability to make create any funds to support things in the community are getting more and more difficult all the time. And I think that we should possibly look at something like a community enhancement grant that goes to the communities where perhaps they get grants and they look after their own grass mowing, they look after.
So I'm just going to bring us back to the specific topic in front of us, which is the community hall assistance grant.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of like Donald Trump. I just wander all over the place. But I just wanted to bring that up because it is connected to that, and just as a thought. Okay, take it away.
So it's something we want to come back to at inside the budget somewhere then, Councillor? The other question that I had before, when I read part 5 of the policy, Does that mean a hall like, so part 5 of the policy says they must have gas? I think maybe we should, gas when connected, because some facilities don't necessarily have a hookup, right? If there's no meter, we can't not help them because they don't have a gas meter. Or they use electricity. So I think we have to be cautious about the spirit of what we're doing. So gas/propane when connected, but then in that, does that part 5 mean that the Amber Valley Hall didn't get paid last year? Because it was my understanding from their presentation that they disconnected and put the building into cold storage over the winter because their boiler wasn't working.
Mr. Chair and members of council, last year Amber Valley did not even apply.
Just to confirm, they managed heat and keeping that building from freezing up because of the museum as well.
Okay. Are there any further comments? So the question is on the adoption of the motion to approve the addition of Athabasca and District Agricultural Society and the Boyle and District Agricultural Society to Schedule A of Policy 7625 Community Hall Assistance Grant, and further to approve Policy 7625 as amended. And the amendment is a change to the definition of community hall, which reads, with the exception of the Athabasca District Agricultural Society, the property must be within Athabasca County boundary and form part of the Athabasca County assessment roll. Councillor Hall?
I don't know about naming the society per se, but mentioning Athabasca and District Agriplex. So the building remains, whether if the society should change the name, the buildings should be the one that we're looking at, not necessarily the society, because the rest of the community halls are listed as a hall. We should be listing this not as a society, but as the actual Agriplex, in my opinion.
So with the exception of the Athabasca Agriplex, is that what its actual name is? With the exception of the Athabasca and District Agriplex. Does everybody understand what we're voting on, or do you want me to repeat it? On the question of the adoption of that motion, all those in favor? Opposed? The count is 7-0, and the motion is adopted. We are at item 3.3, which is the 2025 operating and capital budgets. This is the second look at these. I think I'll give the floor to administration to go over the discussion report. And then once we get into the actual budget, we can look at the budget line, but really flip to the notes pages and back and forth to deal with each one on an individual basis. CIO Beck or Director Ambley, do you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of council. We've outlined the questions that came up at the last budget meeting and the answers are before you. And I don't know if you want me to go line by line or if you have any specific questions that you'd like to highlight. And hopefully we can answer the questions for you today.
I think I've always taken the view that council should have read this before the meeting. So if you have questions about what you've read, this is the moment on these 2 pages. We're on page 32 and 33. Councillor Anderson.
There's a comment on here about the library board and the salary costs related to these roles have been removed from the draft operating budget. Are we expecting those discussions to be complete in 2025? Or is that something that's going to be longer term? Like, I'm just wondering if we should include some funds in there.
Director Ambley, do you want to address that?
Mr. Chair and members of council, upon speaking, we had a couple of meetings with the library grant program through Alberta Municipal Affairs. And what we've learned is that library staff should be reporting directly to a board and not to a municipality. We can provide grant funding, which we already do. But that's why we withdrew those dollars from the budget, is because they are not to be employed by the municipality.
So the problem we were trying to solve by doing that now just kind of gets shifted for the board to create that solution.
Yes, and Mr. Chair, members of council, we are continuing discussions with the library grant program and seeking their guidance and working with the chair going forward.
Okay. If we can pause for 1 second, I realize that I might have jumped ahead too quickly. Councillor Holland, do you want to make the motion about letters related to going to the town and village? Under item 3.2?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that would be great, to see if they would be interested.
If there's no objection, we're gonna table. Councillor Holland's gonna move to table 3.3 till we revert back to 3.2 for a second. Any objections to that? Okay, we're good. Councillor Holland, you wanted to make a motion to send letters to the town and village to see if they, how do you want to word that?
I didn't write that wording down, but to send a letter of request for support. Financial support, I guess you could say, for both the village, pardon me, yeah, the Boyle Agriplex as well as the Athabasca Agriplex. And I don't really know how to put the rest of it, because being that we offer our assistance. We're hoping, I don't know if they need to put that in.
Some Councillor Minns, you want to offer some suggestions on wording there?
On the wording, not really, but I don't know. I agree with the Athabasca multiplex or agriplex. I don't know
We'll
if I
split the
really-
question. I think I'm gonna ask to split it anyway, because I think they're two different things.
Yeah, oh, okay, yeah, we'll split the question.
So I think Councillor Holland is looking for is to direct administration to send a letter to the town and the village. Asking for them to consider financial support of the respective agricultural societies in their boundaries or near them. Is that fair? Does that capture your, Ms. Blair, how are you doing in terms of writing that down? I've said it three different ways. I mean, come on. So the motion is to request to direct administration to send a letter to the town of Athabasca proposing or asking for their support, financial support of the Athabasca District Agricultural Society, and to send a letter to the Village of Boyle requesting their support of the Boyle and District Agricultural Society. And we're going to split the question because it's two distinct propositions. Councillor Holland?
Do we need to offer a suggestion in how much support we're requesting? I imagine that'll be a question that will come back when we send those letters.
Or do you want to leave it to them? That's up to you.
Okay,
It's up to you to decide. I mean, we can, I'm sure the Crafty Mind letter writing team here can tell them what we do and say, what would you like to see?
how we share? Yeah, how much we share.
I think administration's heard that. We want to communicate what we do. So because they're distinct, I'm asking to split the question. Is there any other discussion on this? Councillor Anderson?
Well, just to clarify, are these letters to inform our municipal partners of what we've decided to do and
And request their support?
request that they match that? Or is it just a blanket, we want you to do this? 'Cause to me, those are different requests.
Councillor Capitano?
Just an idea, as we have been discussing, having committees that are just with our two partners, but separately, maybe letter that, lets them know that we would like to have this as a topic of discussion, or we encourage them to put some thought into this for the next time we get together. I don't know, something like that, because we like creating these new committees, right?
Let's just ask them to, well,
Okay.
Councillor Hurlick,
Maybe just ask them.
with your
I'm
microphone.
like,
I think I would be opposed to this motion. I don't think it's a tit for tat. Thing. The county has access to assessments that the town and village don't have, that are fairly substantial. And I think the idea is that we're supporting functions inside the town and village, both that the county residents use, and I think it would just be an irritant as opposed, I think the monetary compensation would be minimal, and the irritation that it would create wouldn't be worth it. So, at any rate, I would not support it.
I would be personally in favor of the motion that's more open to address some of the comments that have been made, to let them decide what they feel they're able to support. So perhaps the support they can provide is something different than cash, because we know that that's not available, but maybe it's snow clearing, or maybe it's some grass cutting or something different. But it's more, hey, here's what we're doing. Maybe you should consider something too. And it's, again, we have no authority or jurisdiction there except to try to use our persuasive influence to challenge our neighbors to do better. Is there any further discussion? Oh, sorry. And I'm going to say on the Village of Boyle one, I'm opposed entirely because it's outside the village. Further discussion? Councillor Holland, do you want to wrap up with a comment?
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So Ms. Blair, can you read what you've typed, please? Just so that I say the same thing you've.
Moved by Councillor Holland to direct administration to send a letter to the town of Athabasca requesting their financial support of the Athabasca and District Agricultural Society.
Okay, we'll stop there. So on the question of that adoption of that motion, all those in favor? Opposed? The count is 7-1. The motion is adopted. And carrying on, Ms. Blair.
Moved by Councillor Holland to direct administration to send a letter to the Village of Boyle requesting their financial support to the Boyle and District Agricultural Society.
On the question of the adoption of that motion, all those in favor? Opposed? So it's 3 and 5. The motion is lost. And Councillor Anderson, had you wanted to make any other additional motions on that? Okay. With apologies for that miss, I had a note and overlooked it. So back to item 3.3. I appreciate your tolerance on that diversion. Are there other questions regarding page 32 and 33? For administration. Councillor Holland, sorry, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Page 32, road construction and maintenance. I'm seeing again, for the second year in a row that we don't have a budget for road construction. And just wondering how that impacts what we're currently doing to try and maintain and keep our roads up to snuff. I realize, of course, bridges are there as well, but just wondering why we can't do it simultaneously. Just wondering what the impacts will be by not having a second year of road construction.
CAO or Director Almond?
Mr. Chair, and members of council, one of the reasons I think was we have many carryover projects as well, and we want to make sure it's manageable to have any road construction, but we are continuing with maintenance. And of course, yes, the bridge construction will also come forward.
Thank
Also
you very
page
much.
34 in this kind of section to see if there's any in the admin report. So if you have questions on that, this is also the time. Councillor Holland, the floor remains yours.
On page, okay, from page 32 to 34, correct?
Yeah, that's
Yep.
kind of the same report. Let's just get them all.
I guess then for the road construction and maintenance portion, would this be an opportunity for making sure that, I guess, for the gravel maintenance, the gravel program that we have, does that encompass outside the program for any type of gravel loss that we're experiencing and that kind of thing? Do we have enough there to make sure that we are replacing the gravel loss that we have experienced this year?
Admin, is there someone?
Chairman, I think I can
Can
answer
answer.
this.
CAO.
I think the intent was to suspend the big road construction. All other programs are intact, including the gravel source and spot graveling. So those programs are intact as they were before. It was really the major road construction that I think Director Whaley informed council that she'd like to tap the brakes on until we got a couple of other things done, including landfill reclamation and gravel pit reclamation. And even to answer your question a bit further, there's still shoulder poles included, which is minor road construction. So there's still construction. It's not complete road rebuilds unless something comes forward for a special motion of council.
Thank you very much.
Floor is yours.
If I may. Let's see what we got here. Number 5, the glaring water supply. I would really like to put a motion forward on bringing that water rate bylaw back to council for further discussion. I probably have spent more time on this than I care to admit. I did not see the answers in the information that we were received, what we had received of why this was applied several years ago, how it affects the water rates and a business case for a subsidy. From my understanding for the levy itself, I'm just seeing a total administrative almost nightmare, a lack of transparency, where we have a levy that was instituted in 2008. We installed more piping and water and et cetera, expanded the system. They didn't get a levy. So now we provide a credit so that we can cancel out the levy to Colton, which then makes our water rate bylaw, which we've been saying we're going to have the same rate right across the board. That doesn't apply to the water rate bylaw, which then tells me, can we challenge the bylaw? So I'm just basically looking at this going, number one, the costs that we have per cube, which is not part of this, but we'll touch that a little later. But that definitely needs to be addressed. But this levy, how would it impact the Colton residents should that levy be discontinued altogether? And I'm curious, because I still haven't been able to find it. When did the zeroing out of the levy start? What year did that start in? Because I've been going through water rate bylaws, I've been looking through everything, going through the historical, going through minutes, killing myself trying to figure this out. And I'm frustrated because I can't find that information. So I'm curious as to when this levy zeroing out thing started. How quickly after 2008 did that begin? Did it start 2012, et cetera, et cetera? So I just don't have enough information here other than that levy is creating a nightmare. And it needs to go. If we're zeroing it out, why do we have it?
I'm wondering if this is a subject that would be better handled through committee of the whole as its own lengthier discussion. Because you bring up a number of pieces that I mean, we'll offer the floor to the CIO, but I would propose that this is something we should take to the committee of the whole for a conversation.
Mr. Chairman, that's exactly what I was going to suggest is if it please council to pass a motion, we're happy to bring back a report and some background information. Because we already owe council a report on the delegation that you received from a business owner in Grassland who wanted information about his utility rates. So we had already begun research on that. So it's kind of related. So we're happy to bring ahead a report that kind of addresses both issues at once, Mr. Chairman.
So Councillor Holland, would you be interested in making a motion to direct administration to bring a discussion item to committee of the whole regarding water rates and the levy in Colton?
Absolutely. And in the fact of the water rates that we're looking at what our actual costs are in the prior year,
Let's move that discussion to
Okay.
that place then. So
Okay, just making
what's the
sure.
language that you would like? To direct administration to bring a discussion item to committee of the whole regarding water rates?
Regarding water rates and the Colton water levy. Do you need the bylaw number for that?
Regarding water rates and the local improvement levy in Colton. So Councillor Holland has made a motion to direct administration to bring a discussion item to committee of the whole regarding water rates and the local improvement levy in Colton. Any further discussion? Councillor Capitano. Oh, if you're ready for the question on the question of the adoption of that motion, all those in favor? Opposed? The count is 7-1 and the motion is adopted. Are there other questions? Yep, Councillor Capitano.
Forgive me if I didn't notice this before, but I am seeing,
So we're still right now on pages 32, 33.
never mind. I'm way ahead of you,
So then we're going to work through the rest page at a time, just. So
but
we all stay on
also
the
it's
same
so
page.
tiny and I'm like, okay, sorry.
Councillor, is there anyone else that has additional questions on 32 or 33, or can we move forward and get right into the budget? Let's move along. The page 36, of course, is the summaries of all the other reports wrapping up into there. I don't think there's a lot there, other than I did notice we made an amendment on the fire department capital purchases reserve to 500,000, but it didn't carry forward into future years. And so I just wanted to confirm with council, was that the intent to bump for 1 year and drop back, or was the intent to bump up and carry on, which is how I understood it? Councillor Chamzik,
I'd like to see it carry forward.
is there any objection to seeing that 500 carry forward as a flat rate into the future? Director Ombley or Mr. Imtaz, you can note that.
Mr. Chair, I will.
Moving on to the legislative budget, that's on page 37. Councillor Holland.
Sorry, thank you. The reserve transfers that we're looking at on page 36. Do you want to discuss these as we get to that budget? or should we
Everything else is
discuss-
kind of in the budgets.
Okay,
Sorry, but
may I
just
just,
one conversation at a time.
sorry, may I just bring it forward just because it's kind of confusing? The energy efficiency reserve is in common services. The green and muni and common initiatives is in administration. So I wanted to talk about those particular two, but they're in two different budgets, even though they're,
Let's go to the space where they are and
okay,
catch them as we go.
okay.
So legislative budget is on page 37. The notes are on 38 and 39. There were no changes from last time. Have the notes brought forward any additional questions? Seeing none, moving on to page 41, the administrative services budget. There was some amendments in the lines 2110, 2142, 2240, and 2755 that I think are explained on pages 43 through 45. Director Ombley, do you want to, or Mr. Imtaz, do you want to speak to any of that, or council, do you have questions? I don't.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. So the wages and the benefits increased to reflect the 2 IT personnel that we were proposing.
Okay.
And then the computer maintenance and subscription, which is 2240, decreased by 60,000 because we will be reducing, we will be limiting our contract with the third-party software provider or IT consultant. And then also 2755, which is transferred to other organization. This is the Athabasca District Ag Society and the Boyle District Ag Society transfers that are included here, which increased 47,500 from 92,500 to 140,000. And Mr. Chair, I would also like to point out that on page 47 of the agenda, you see that the assist schools in bus costs, as per county policy 2613, you see that there's only 15,000 sitting in 2025. It should be following through to all the way to 2029. We will correct that in the next viewing.
Thank you. Good catch. That's on page 47, the very first line under rec grants, assist schools in busing costs, policy 2613. The future budgeting did not include the number, and their admin is going to add that number in. That's at the top of page 47, Councillor Hall. So you'll see in 2025, it says 15,000 and there's 0 in the other numbers. Councillor Anderson.
On page 47, I have a couple questions. First, with the assist community halls with operating costs, I'm wondering, just because of the cost increases that we've seen, if we should not budget for some amount of escalation of that cost through the years. That's a lot of different buildings. You're going to see some cost escalations just across that many buildings. So I would encourage us to consider increasing that amount by a certain amount each year, just to make sure that that budget is enough to cover that.
Is there any objection, council, on that? Asking admin to put an inflation factor on that line? 2 or 3%, something like. I'm gonna just speak to it briefly, Councillor. I think on that one, it makes sense. There's good value in that, but I think one of the worries that I would say we want to be careful about not doing just an automatic inflation factor on every budget category is not all items change, and it's an easy way for your budget to just creep unnecessarily. So we want to test, in my personal view, every year most of these items we should test every year to say, is that still workable for the upcoming year? But the floor remains yours.
Thank you. And further to that page, public engagement, including the budget engagement for $11,000 is budgeted for $15,000 this year. Can you, through the chair to administration, what can we expect to see for that $15,000 in budget engagement?
And so the $7,000 works out to about $125 per person that answered the survey. So administration, I'll leave that question to you. Are we expecting a deeper level of engagement or?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it's really been it's just the first year that we've ever surveyed the public. So as the saying goes in advertising, results may vary. You know, we hope that the program grows and the survey actually grows, and but it was the first year and we engaged as much as we could. Do we think that there should be more engagement in the future of the services and how we're serving residents? Absolutely. So we're including in the budget. We're happy to discuss further with council as we move through the year if there's better ways to do it.
Councillor Anderson, the floor remains yours. Do you have additional? Councillor Kapitanek?
I just wanted to add a thought to that, and you, CAO said exactly what I was thinking. It was the first time we gave that a try. I don't like to look at it, especially in a pilot project, as it costs so much per person that replied. For me, the value is being able to say that we had engagement provided, that I had something to talk to people about, to let them know where they could go, whether they chose to or not. I mean, they say we lead a horse to water, right? But to me, the value is there, especially if it continues through the year. If it becomes a known thing, people will look for it. And then they will know that we are actively engaging, whether they choose to participate. Now it's on them. And I would happily continue that. I thought the survey was a great thing to promote.
Further questions on this page? Councillor Minns?
I guess getting back to page 40 regarding the IT personnel. I'm very happy to see that is coming forward to hiring 2 more people regarding IT, because it is a nightmare. And not having people in here to actually be hands-on is a definite positive that I very much like to see. We come first full circle, we're back to it. Perfect. Thank you.
Reminds me of a cartoon I once saw where it was around the constitutional talks, and seemed like you're back at square one. But Councillor Holland, your hand was up.
Thank you. Page 47, 2760, transfer to reserve, the Green Municipal and Community Initiatives Policy 2860. Okay, we have 2 different green energy efficient type reserves. And again, one is further up in common services. I am not against green municipal and community initiatives. I'm not against energy efficiencies. I think it's extremely important, but I question, do we need 2 different reserves for that? Which brings me to the dreaded cap levy. As we're seeing, last year, $2,738 from the first start was only from October. Get it? Totally.
Is that inside the administrative services budget?
It's part of the 2860 policy for the green unit. That's where the funding
So
comes from.
I guess I'm gonna ask. If we want to get into a policy discussion, I'm just not sure if the whole council's as prepared as you are. If you've been working on that, I just want to make sure we're focused on budget, but the floor remains here.
I'll just float the boat and then see where, if people want to jump off or jump in. Basically, the way I look at it is that we're looking at it a very highly administrative function to properly administrate a cap levy, to properly make sure that the audits are being done so that we know that what is supposed to be coming in is coming in, et cetera, et cetera. And we're currently looking in 2024 that was sent out in the email prior. And thank you again very much for that information. It's so very valuable. That by the end of September, we're looking at $21,472.43 added to that 2738. We budgeted 10,000, and I see that that's of course exceeded that particular budget. But does administration, I guess is through the chair to administration, feel that the 21,472 plus the last bit we're going to receive in this last quarter is worthy of keeping, or is it an administrative cost that pretty much cancels out what we're doing by receiving this revenue?
Mr. Chairman, I think that we have previously told council that our intent was to try to get through budget this year, but bring a reserve policy for council discussion, hopefully early in the new year. We really don't have a whole lot of policy on reserves. You know, we should. It's fair for the public to know why we save for certain initiatives, what the target is, what we're saving for. Part of that is so that we don't oversave. We're not trying to overtax the public. We're trying to save for certain reasons, and we want that to be transparent. So we absolutely need a better reserve policy. Your discussion is leading right into that. And it's, I wouldn't say that there's an administrative nightmare with the cap levy issue right now. It's a very voluntary program. So we're not really, yeah, it's not an administrative nightmare. It is what it is. I think the bigger picture is overall, all the reserves, because we've got a bunch of different ones, are we on the right track? And we need that discussion with council. And it's probably tied a little bit to some tangible capital asset info that we don't quite have, but we'll do our best.
So the budget is based on the policies we have. Do you think we should be increasing or decreasing that amount?
For right now, being that budgets are amendable, I recommend that we leave it as it sits for the Green Municipal Community Initiatives. However, as you mentioned, it is a voluntary program. And so somebody who decides that they don't want to be volunteer for this, we would have to then go out and audit to
Well,
make sure.
For
And for me,
factual truth telling, it is not a voluntary program. It is a bylaw that is required. Now, people may not participate. That's like saying speed limits and seatbelts are voluntary.
okay,
Like, let's,
sorry, I
Yeah.
used that word, pardon me. I followed that same wording. And yes, it is a bylaw.
Okay.
If somebody chooses not to follow the bylaw, then we
there's
have
an
to
enforcement
go,
question.
right, we have an enforcement piece, which then of course increases that administrative cost, which was what I was referring
So-
to.
Other questions on the budget administrative pages? Councillor Gerlich, I wasn't sure if your hand was up or if you were.
Getting back to the review that was done, somehow it doesn't seem like valuable information. When you ask somebody, do you think we should be spending more money on it or less money, or is it too much or whatever? What I'd like to see is, are they satisfied with the service they're getting?
And I think
As opposed to- Because we sit around the table and we argue about it. None of us can make up our mind. Some say it's good, some say it's bad. So I don't know how people can make a decision without any information.
And I think
Perception.
in the next year, there will be more opportunity based on what the CAO has told us to dig deeper into what you'd like to see in the survey and how you want that engagement to take place. So I think that will come for you. Okay, page 48, fire protection. Budget. Are there any, the notes are on page 49 through 52. Their administration, do you want to make any comments on the things that are in yellow that have changed, just so we know why they've changed? And Mr. Imtiaz?
Mr. Chair, so we increased contracted repairs equipment for 24,500 to factor in costs for fleet tire replacement program, public works, fire skid maintenance, portable equipment maintenance, and any unplanned maintenance. And we also increased other expenses for 4250 for fire occupational testing.
Other questions from the floor? Councillor Anderson?
Thank you. Number 1850 local government grant on page 49 states that we receive an annual contribution from each the Summer Village of Mayawatha Beach and the Summer Village of Bondis for $10,000 each. I'm just wondering, when was the last time this contribution was negotiated?
Chief Shalpai? There's a chair on the side if you want it.
I'll take it to any here, sir. So through the chair to Councillor Anderson, so we have to look at all our summer village agreements across the board. It's been in place since well over a decade. They're the rates we charge the 2 summer villages in the east side of the county. It's not exactly $10,000. It is based on assessed values, equalized assessment rates, and the cost of the Boyle Fire District. That factors into that. So that number isn't specifically 10, but it's been right around that number for a period of time, and it is something that is on the radar for review in 2025.
So just for clarity, you incorporate and consider that this fire protection is provided by both the county through our various halls and the Boyle District.
That's correct.
Councillor Anderson, you have the floor. Any more questions? Councillor Holland, I think I saw your hand go up.
Thank you. Just a couple of things just to make sure that we're carrying forward the 500,000 as we mentioned in the summary. Okay, good enough. And I'm sorry, but my eyes aren't really focusing on this tiny little print. Do we have fire smarting? Do we have money in the budget for fire smart?
21, no. That's 1851.
1851.
Oh, no, well, sorry, there's fire smart is listed under 1851,
Sorry, it's so little. There we go.
but
Mr. Chair,
Okay, there's
2234.
nothing there.
and 2234. Sorry, that one was a grant.
That was a grant. And what was the other one? Sorry.
2234, it's on page 50. It's the second.
There we go.
Lockdown.
Fire smart. Okay. Ooh, that's not very much.
So it's $7,500 per year.
Okay, so there is currently, I believe, Wawanesa has a grant, another grant out for fire smarting, 15,000. Are we able to put a motion through to apply for that so that we can try and pad some of this budget?
I think, is that something that should come actually as its own thing to a meeting rather than an off the cuff, off the fly adjustments? Because then there's no RFD and there's no discussion.
Oh, not
Nobody's
looking for an
prepared.
adjustment.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could answer this real quickly. I think Chief Chalapay knows about every Fire Smart grant and is on top of it and is applying, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. And for our next council meeting on the 31st, it is our intention to bring forward a RFD regarding free Fire Smart grant applications. We did do 4 or 5. Can't recall exactly how many we made it in time, but we did do several applications earlier this fall. And we do need an RFD from council to support those projects as well. So we'll be in front of council next week to discuss this.
Perfect. Councillor Chamzik.
And just to note that particular grant is eligible for municipalities and fire departments, nonprofits, so on and so forth.
Councillor Holland, the floor remains yours.
So the Fire Smart, this particular professional consulting, this is a Fire Smart grant application assistance. So that's what that budget is for. We don't actually have a Fire Smart itself budget to go out and, you know, check somebody's properties for them and say, okay, this is what you need to do. We don't have that in our budget.
Through the chair to Councillor Holland, no, we don't have that funding up front. We've relied on grant applications. We've been very successful in the past with those grant applications, so we don't have a specific line. In terms of public education, we do have some funds in 2991, which would include Fire Smart education to the public, but in terms of actually having money set aside for a big Fire Smart campaign, no, we rely on the grant funding.
May I offer? I would like to personally, and I would, again, this is up to council, but I would like to see some funds set aside for that. I don't know what is appropriate, what is not the norm. Would 10,000 be sufficient to start? I don't know, but I would definitely like to see a figure in there that provides that education piece.
CAO Beck.
Mr. Chairman, I think this would require, like, maybe we need to bring back the fire services review for council. It's certainly mentioned in there, but you can't start every program all at once unless Chief Chalapay gets a few more staff. So we can only do what we can do. Is it in our future that we should be doing that? We should be going out in the subdivisions with some summer staff and maybe helping people fire smart their properties? Absolutely. We're not there yet.
Thank you for that.
Other questions? Seeing none on the fire program, no more questions. Let's move on to page number 54. This is the Emergency Management Highway 63 Emergency Services. The notes for that go on page 53, or sorry. Oh, sorry, sorry, I punched a hole in the wrong side of the paper. The notes go on page 55 and 56. Questions? Seeing none, on to the Enforcement Services budget on page 57. We have budget on 57 and the notes on page 58 and 59. We note the addition of the positive ticketing program that was brought up last time. And I had one question. Sorry, I see your hand, Councilor Mins. I'm going to ask my question first, just because it's already talking. Under contracted services, I missed this last time. The animal pound and veterinary service decreased by about $45,000. Is that just to align what we actually spent with our projections?
Mr. Chair, we did a reduction because that's more in line with what our actual spending was. We were unsuccessful with our RFP for pound services, so we're currently looking at a multi-municipality approach to this. We have some upcoming meetings with other municipalities in the same position, so we're looking at that, but we don't have any sort of dollar figure around that as of yet.
Councilor Mins, floor is yours.
Yeah, I just want to thank administration for bringing that back regarding the positive ticketing program. I think I asked a question in the committee of the whole last time where that was, and thank you very much for bringing that in.
Councilor. Other questions? Councilor Anderson?
Thank you. Got a few. For animal pound and veterinary services, we had 75,000 budgeted for this year, plus another 3,100 budgeted for animal rescue and foster costs. And in 2025, it's being reduced to a combined 33,600. I'm just wondering if that's adequate, given the increased number of dog calls that we seem to be hearing about at Committee of the Whole.
Chief Shalpai.
So through the chair to Councillor Anderson, at this point, that's a best projection. And what we've actually seen cost wise, we are seeing a significant number of dog calls. The unfortunate truth is a lot of times we're unable to help individuals. So we are referring them to third-party animal rescues elsewhere because we just don't have the capacity to seize animals and to house them. So that's reflective of a true cost. In terms of level of service, is it the ideal level of service? I'd say no, but at this point, we really don't have many options unless we can, again, work towards some sort of intermunicipal solution to this, because it's not just an Athabasca County issue. This is a widespread issue in Northern Alberta,
which is coming back to us. Okay.
Thank you. And further to that, I noticed on line 1533 that we're increasing our projected traffic fines by $25,000 this year. And I'm just kind of wondering if that's a realistic target. Very essential service that I think we provide in this community is responding to calls and complaints that are really non-fine generating cases, responding to those dog calls, responding to other types of bylaw complaints. And I think those are essential, extremely important services to provide for our community. And I just wouldn't want to put pressure on our bylaw officers to focus more on the traffic fines when they do have so many of those other calls and complaints to respond to.
So the question, I think, is it realistic?
Through the chair to Councillor Anderson. So I'll be the first one to say I do not promote a quota system or a performance expectation. The $100,000 is based on our projections for 2024 once all fines come in. That's with the inclusion of the third officer. We've seen higher than projected revenue.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Councillor Wallach.
Under 2270 licenses and permits, there's a few like the softwares that don't continue on. Is that a miss, or they got moved or not using that?
Through the chair to Councillor Wallach, we're actually looking at transitioning to different software. So if you look at the top line, Omnigo will become MRF. So it is, some software is being discontinued in terms of, to shift to a better solution for us.
Additional questions? Seeing none. Let's move on to the common services budget. Now, it's been an hour. Does anybody feel the need for a 10-minute break? Let's do 7 to 10. So we'll come back a little around the 25 after. or 7 to 10. I think we're going to start at the 7-minute end. We are moving on to page number 60 after we've reconvened. Page 60 is the Common Services budget. Notes are on page 61 through 64. Are there any questions? Councillor Holland.
So this brings me back to that energy efficiency reserve that we chatted about, and I understand about the reserve policy and all that information that may be coming. But I guess just more than anything, this came from a 2021 report. Thank you for sending that information out. It didn't look like it was implemented until 2023, however, from that 2021 report, I don't remember implementing.
So just so that everybody can catch up, we're at page 64 on line 2760 is the line item that I think
Thank
Councillor
you.
Holland is
Sorry.
referring to.
Thank you, appreciate that. So I don't remember that. So I guess my question is out there. We have an emergency, a reserve set aside for energy efficiency or green municipal initiatives. To me, they're the exact same thing, or are they not? Same concept?
Through the chair to Councillor Holland, the green initiative is strictly related to the cap levy, whereas this the energy efficiency was meant to be for I believe it was for a consultant to review our energy efficiency and come up with solutions to make everything more efficient.
Right. And so basically his recommendation was, as we set aside this reserve for any future. Would we not be able to combine the two? So that we have one green initiative fund, or is this something that does need to be separated?
I think that seems like a policy discussion, but Councillor Capitanic, do you want to comment?
My memory serves me that the cap levy green initiative money was for residents to apply if they wanted to do something green, and then they could get, it was potential grant for them, right?
2860, 50% of the fund could be for residents, 50% for municipality.
Okay, so I'm wondering, would we still have to keep the resident portion separate?
I would say that for me personally, that we remove one of the energy efficiency reserve, leave it in the green municipal initiative with the policy that's attached to it, and have one reserve, not two different ones.
So
But that's
but
personal.
today we have policy in place and we have a decision in place and we have a reserve policy coming up. So the question around budget is whether it's in one bucket or two buckets is, in my view, irrelevant to the budget discussion. If we
I
want to have
was-
a policy discussion, that's different. But do we have the right amounts in budget for what we're going, for the decisions we've already made?
Right. And I would prepare to say, remove the energy efficiency reserve and remove that 10,000 from the budget.
Councillor Wallach?
So I think my understanding of the difference is the cap levy is funded by the cap levy. This is where actually intentionally putting money away for energy efficiency into a reserve. Is that correct?
To the chair to Councillor Wallach, yeah, that's correct. The green municipal is dependent on how much cap levy. So if we receive 5,000, we only transfer 5,000 to reserve. And like this year, we've received 21,000. So the intention will be to transfer the 21,000 to reserves under green municipal fund.
So Councillor Holland is proposing that that item be scrapped. Is there widespread support for that? I think that doesn't look like that's the case. Other questions around common services budget? Councillor Anderson?
Okay. I'm wondering if the snow clearing reserve can specifically be discussed during the reserve policy discussion as well. I think we implemented that with good intentions, but I'm not sure that it's being utilized or carried out in the way that we had originally intended. And I don't think that the way that we originally intended would require $30,000 to be added to the original reserve on an annual basis. I think that was a one-time contribution that we just wanted to make sure that money was there in case we needed it. And so I don't think we actually need to include that $30,000 on an annual basis.
So I think, so the question then is really, do we want to continue to grow that fund, or was the original intent to put a certain amount of money in so we had it if it was available, needed, but not to grow it indefinitely? Councillor Mins, do you remember?
Yeah, in a way, I totally agree with that because that fund there was done yeah. I was gonna say a whim, but a snow year, when all of a sudden we had all this snow and everybody wanted to hire every grader in Alberta to try to clear it, but that this fund could be scrapped as far as I care, and if we need to hire equipment, we go ahead and hire equipment. It's like when we have a big rain event and all of a sudden there's roads washed out and everything like that. We don't have a special fund for washouts. We have an emergency fund. And it's classified as an emergency. So I don't see any reason in actually keeping the
So there's,
reserve fund going.
so there's two parts to that. One is, do we continue to fund it in this year's budget? And the second is, do we combine it with something else? Which I think the second part falls in with what the CIO has told us. We're going to bring a reserve fund policy and talk about all of that. On the question about what's in this year's budget, do we leave it at 0 or 30?
0.
Is there any objection to putting it to 0
Nope.
for 2025 going forward?
I'd make
Okay.
that motion.
We need a motion. We're just going to, admin will.
You know that now we're gonna get 8 feet of snow this winter.
But we still got money in the bank. Councillor Holland?
Yeah, just as a note, if the 2024 budget, which hasn't been reserved, the reserve hasn't been transferred yet, but we would have $80,000 in that reserve. Which is, again, thank you very much for this, because that really makes a difference on what we're padding and what we're not.
Are there other questions? I had under 1410, which is on page 61 of your agenda. Can you just remind us what we sell to the summer villages and the group listed in A through F there? Line 1410 on page 61. Do we know what we sell to all those guys? And I know there's no changes from last time. It's just because it was a single line last time and now we're seeing what's in the sausage and we want to.
Mr. Chair, I'm gonna have to drill down into this and get back to you about this.
Super. And then the other on 1560, because part of my life I spend looking at real estate stuff. I'm noticing that we have not, I guess the question that comes out of that line is, when was the last time this rent was reviewed and or increased to ensure it's at a fair market value?
Sorry, what line is that, Mr. Chair?
1560 on page 61.
1560.
I think I know the answer, but
Mr. Chair, that hasn't been reviewed, but we can review it again and come up with an updated number. Council.
that's a different motion, and I don't think I'd be proposing that. It was more just to know if we regularly look at it, and I feel like we have somebody who was recently introduced to council that may be doing some land work, so I'm content to leave it sit for now. Did I see another hand up? Councillor Holland?
I'm sorry, I just have a question, and again, this is totally operational, but it's just for my own satisfaction. When we're looking at all these, the notes, the from the GL 1410, for example, that has what, 6, 7 different items in it, how are you keeping track of that? Is there a sub code for the GL, or is this on a spreadsheet?
To the chairs, to Councillor Holland, 1410 is the code. So anything related to these services to these villages would be coded to 1410, but under specifically common services.
Okay.
So if you wanted to look at anything specific, we would go to the 1410 code, and all these sales would be recorded in that.
Okay, but you would have, they're not in their own little sub code to be able to pull that up, but you would have to go through and sort through it all.
No.
So is the GL a little skinny for codes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, we did update the GL from 10,000 codes down to 2,500.
Right.
And at one point, we did have every single line item would have every single code.
Sure.
And that just makes way too many codes to keep track of and manage.
Councillor Mins?
Thank you.
To the chair, when you asked Summer Villages, what would we actually sell to Summer Villages? All of a sudden, I got my mind working here, sanding and snow plowing would be sold to Summer Villages through agreements and that, so that would come in and probably hit there, being it's not it's one lumped in general ledger code, right? That's where that would come into play. Eh? Maybe if we accidentally had to go out there and steam a culvert, something like that, eh? You know, just to help out or.
Other questions on common services? Seeing none, Councillor Grilla, is your hand going up or you? No. Okay. We're on the road construction budget. That looks like it starts on page 65. With the notes on page 66, 67, 68, and 69. It's a lot of notes for such a short budget. Council, so does anybody but except Councillor Holland have a question? And Councillor Mins, Anderson, Holland. Somebody else gets to ask their questions first.
Line 2250, in the, where's it got? Chip Seal Airport Road. Where's that at? 2250.
So 2250, the notes for that are on page 67.
It is, that was 2250.
Mr. Chairman, I believe I can anticipate your question. We previously showed it and it was a 350,000 and I would imagine you're asking where that is.
Yeah.
It was
Okay,
down from
yeah.
1.9 million.
Mr. Chair, that will be in the capital side of things. So if we look on.
Okay.
If you look on page 105, you will see under roads, Cape Ceiling Pilot. That's the 350,000 that you might be looking at.
Actually, I just found it here under the county hard surfacing program, Chip Seal Airport Road and Century Estates.
That's on page 67.
Yeah,
It is down near the bottom third of the page.
all of a sudden we start hitting 750,000 all the way across there and I'm wondering like, why? Like all of a sudden, looks like kind of like a tickle trunk behind you with the slush fund, eh? So I'm just wondering as it keeps progressing across there, is that just an error or? should the whole line
I
be-
think this will be the subject of further, I think we only barely begun to have a discussion about the hard surfacing program, but I think this section is specifically so this would be resurfacing, extra lifts of asphalt, everything else.
Oh, okay.
And I don't believe that we've really been budgeting much in the last
No.
few years. So I think this is a warning that in 26 or beyond, we have to start investing in recapping a bunch of the hard surface that we already have.
Perfect.
That's really what this section is, and it's a placeholder and it's a big placeholder, 750,000.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay. No.
But for in the prior view of this budget, that line item was at $1.9 million.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, I just wanted to also point out, the reason we don't have anything for 2025 is because we recently did the hot crack sealing at the airport. That should last 2 years instead of 1. And then we're also planning to doing the resurfacing at the Century Estates as the conditions of the road are poor instead of doing the chip seal.
Chip seal?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why you don't see the figure 750 in 2025.
Okay, what did I write down? I had Mins, Anderson, Holland.
Oh,
Councillor
I got
Mins, the
one.
floor remains yours.
Okay,
Sorry.
page 69. like that one. Line 2960, grass mowing goes from 5,000 to 15,000. Is there a reason why that went up to 15,000? Just inflation?
Through the chair to Councilor Mintz, that's just to reflect the actual costs.
Perfect. And then the other one was under major road construction. All of a sudden, we have ditching and brushing for 30,000.
That's just further down the page.
Yeah.
Through the chair to Councilor Mintz, this was a correction. Initially, we had the 130,000 in damage claims on 2272. That was there by error. It was meant to be 30,000 and it was meant to be for ditch brushing. So we removed the 130 from damage claims and only moved the 30 here to ditch brushing. And this is, I believe this was due to beavers keep plugging up that area, which which resulting in us having to go in there and get it
That's-
cleared and do the ditch
Mis-
brush.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, it's that ditch on the north side of Paxton Road. It hasn't had brushing in many years.
Mhm.
And our people tell us it's time that we made that a special project and just got it brushed and cleaned up.
Okay. Yep, no, perfect. Thank
What
you.
remains yours?
No, I'm good. I'm good. That's perfect.
Councilor
you.
Anderson, then Holland, and then Capitanek. You good? Councilor Holland, there you go.
Oh, wow, okay. In our last meeting, we had, briefly just asked, Director Willie to see if she could come back with an estimate of pulling up that fiber mat, thank you. I'm like, the proper word for it on the Perryville Hill. And just wondering if that has come back and if that will be included in this in the future.
CAO.
I'm told it's about 35,000.
We can talk about putting it in here.
Um,
Can we talk?
Yeah, we can confirm whether or not it's already in here. We can
Okay.
bring that back in the next round.
Yeah, it might be in here. That's what but I just would like to know if that is the case. It just might not say Perryville
We
Hills,
just
right?
have a grader with a ripper. We can do it for, very little.
Well, we've been
Do you,
asking
do you have to
for
pull,
years.
I mean, it's operational, but does it have to be like, do you just have to destroy it or do you have to take it up and throw it away?
We'll figure it out, Mr. Chairman.
Can I comment on that?
Your microphone's on.
Because we've done lots of it. You bring it up with two graders and put it in the center and you haul it to the pit and use it for floor gravel. It's the best thing you can do with it. It's under maintenance. That's where we used to do it, is just under maintenance of roadways. Boom, we'd move everything in and gone. So very easy.
Councilor Holland.
Thank you. And don't shoot me because I'm kind of stuck on reserves here for a little bit, but our road construction reserve sitting at 2.7
Can you give
million.
us a line and page number, please?
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the sheet that we were given over the email on what our reserves, what our accounts are in our reserves and what their totals are. So looking at our road construction at 2.7 million, I'm just looking to see where the reserves, are we stopped putting in reserves or is that in a different spot?
Through the chair to Councilor Holland, right now we don't actually have a road construction reserve set up. That's why I do have a blank line. If you look at the budget summary, that could be up to council's discretion if you'd like a reserve set up, but currently there isn't a road construction. There must have been one back in the past.
Right.
And that balance you see there has been set up from the past.
From the past, so we just have not continued to add to it. So where's the emergency funds coming from, for example, when we have an emergency? Out of which reserves?
So through the chair to Councilor Holland, so usually it would be general operating reserve.
General operating. So the road construction reserve is strictly for road construction. We have nothing for emergency other than it, okay. So the 30,000 that we just took away for the snow plowing. I'm wondering if that's something that we should be considering putting back in to the road construction and maintenance, or if that's of interest. I just would hate to see that we have some massive emergency and we don't have the capability of handling it.
Seo, do you have any advice?
Mr. Chairman, again, that's good planning. I think we'll just defer to when we bring back the reserve for discussion, but we do have other reserves. There's one called general reserve, which is the all encompassing for basically for anything you want. So it's not like we don't have any. Should we be planning specifically for road construction? 100%. So we'll bring that back when we bring back the reserve discussion.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Gerlich, this seems in your alley. You got any on your lane? Do you have any road questions you want to ask while we're on this? What's that? The other long-term plans. Other questions? Councillor Minns, your hand is up. Floor is yours.
Yeah, I just keep going back to it. I remember last year, we started discussing and taking road construction out just due to the fact of our reclamation and reclamations on gravel pits and all this stuff. And I was a little bit uptight about losing road construction. So I said, I'll vote for this budget if we put $1 million away for in reserves. And I don't see it. I went back and actually looked and I couldn't even find a motion, but I thought I made a motion to put $1 million away in reserves for road construction. So where is
Do we do it for road construction or for gravel pit reclamation again? Road construction? Who was here at the time? CO Beck, how's your memory? Those first few turbulent months.
My memory's not that good. I think what I would instead just say that, ask Mr. Imtiaz, at the end of the year, how much did we, at year end, how much did we end up transferring to reserve? I think that's a different question because I think there's well over $1 million that got transferred to reserve.
okay. But
That is correct. Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
That would be unrestricted, I'm sorry.
That would be unrestricted.
So we can, Councillor Anderson's looking at the past budget. Are there any other questions related to road and bridge construction? I mean, following up on the question that came up around 2960 and the mowing agreements. So did we make new agreements? Like, did those agreements get increased? Because how do we go from 5,000 to triple that? I mean, I know it's still only 15,000.
I'll try to answer this, Mr. Chairman. It was based on a meeting I was in, and so I only know enough that I won't give away the whole story. I think that staff are anticipating that some other groups may want to get into agreements with us. We have some differing levels of service in some of the subdivisions depending on who they are. And we would suggest to council via policy that maybe this initiative, we need to have a bit of an equitable level of service throughout the county. And so this would be moving in that direction. And we'll see if we can. So this is a bit of a placeholder that it may go up based on agreements with community groups. Let's put it that way.
That satisfies me. Councillor Anderson, did you find that answer to that reserve question? Are there any further questions on road construction and maintenance, or can I jump ahead to the community transportation? Okay, community transportation budget. Councillor Holland, do you want to open that discussion by maybe talking about the most recent meeting and the proposed budget and what the reactions at the community transportation meeting were to that?
Thank you, and I will ask for help if I should need it. I wasn't prepared to have a bit of a report here. The quick and dirty on this one was we brought this to the committee. The committee was receptive, but they are also going through budget talks at this time. So they were given 20, 30 and 40,000 in reserves to take back to their council to have their deliberations and come back and say, hey, yeah, we're in or we're out. So this, of course, is the minimum is in the budget for this time.
Other questions on the community transportation budget? Councillor Anderson?
When I originally thought of this community transportation reserve, and this goes back to our bigger discussion around reserves, I was expecting much more than 20,000 to be put into a reserve, just after hearing about the age of the current vehicles and the price of replacing them. I expected it to be much more. And I was actually prepared to advocate for the 30,000 taken out of the snow removal reserve to be added to this, so that we would top it up to 50. I just think that if we have that money and we're just going to shuffle it, we should put it here in somewhere that I think would be absolutely put to good use to meet the community's needs in the future. So I would have advocated for that, but I think it's going to be part of a larger discussion in our reserves policy.
Under reserve policy, okay, Councillor Pepperton.
Well, I feel like the motive is pure and good. I would want to hear back what the partners are prepared to contribute first, because I think sometimes if we go over the top, they might feel an expectation that they can't meet. And I think your committee and budget negotiations would likely lend a direction. And if it's 50, it's 50. And if it's more or less, it is. But I think we definitely need to hear from them directly what they can contribute to that reserve.
Councillor Holland, the floor is yours.
Just as a quick follow-up, if council's feeling very generous, Director Wilkinson did an amazing find on a wonderful unit that we could purchase right away. That would be absolutely amazing and a huge benefit. So we could up that just a little bit more and we would be covered. Just if you're feeling generous.
Perhaps the committee could put an RFD in front of council and then we'd have something to make a decision with. Councillor Chance, you've been very quiet today.
What is the cost? Can I ask?
Getting off topic, but
It's it's below 150.
So just as a point of information, the way the split works on this, the county pays 2/3, our partners pay 1/3. So on, $20,000 going into a reserve fund is about $6,000 between the two partners. And I'm personally of the view that when we have this tool in terms of a fleet of vehicles and we wear them out for the common purpose, that as we wear them out, we should be putting money back in so that we're always kind of whole in terms of how we're doing that, rather than wear them out and then wonder where the money comes from. Because it's easy to keep up with your depreciation. Are there any other questions on community? Do you want to speak, Director Wilkinson?
I just wanted to mention and add to what Councillor Holland had to say was that I was asked by the committee to provide scenarios on 20, 30 and 40. And so I did send that back to the committee members as well as their CAOs.
20, 30 and 40,000?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Anderson? Okay. Oh, okay. So any further questions on that community transportation budget? We're happy. Following up on the road construction, Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I found in the minutes from the December 12th regular county council meeting, resolution 23-713, moved by Councillor Anderson to pause road construction for 1 year and to reallocate $1 million to an existing restricted reserve for road construction pending receipt of a 2025 construction plan. That motion carried 7-2.
So that was motion 23-713 from the December 12th meeting, sir. 713. Okay, moving along, airport. So the plan, I see lunches here. I was thinking we'd run till 12, break, and then try to wrap up shortly thereafter. The airport budget has had some amendments that were based on discussion at the last meeting. Are there any further questions now that you have the notes? The notes, the notes are on page 74, 75. And the budget is on 73. Seeing none. Moving along to page 76. Water supply budget. The notes for that are on page 77 and 78. Are there any questions? Councillor Holland, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Just really quick, again, sorry, but it's with the reserves. So in 2023, I believe it was 44,000 that we had budgeted for and put away in reserves. Then we bumped it to 2024 for 62,900. This is item, line item 2060. And now in 2025, we've upped it to 107,200. My question is why?
So Mr. Imtaz, is there a formula for that, or how are those numbers determined? Because when we're down to into the hundreds of dollars on a transfer like that, I assume it's more than.
Mr. Chair, those were projected based on, I guess, from 2023 to 2027 budget, and it's just a carry forward. I did not change any of those numbers, but I can look into why they're so different.
Okay, and if I may?
Where's your-
In 2023, we actually had a surplus listed for water supply, and it was a user pay situation, and I'm pretty sure we didn't give rebates back to the users for that surplus, right? And so when I'm looking at this, if we had a surplus in 2023, 2024 could possibly be looking at the same, because I do believe personally that our water rates are over what the cost actually should be. So we'll look at that when that comes back. So I would propose that we actually reduce the transfer to reserves in 2025 back to what the 2023 level was, which was 44 something, 44.2, I can't remember. I have it somewhere here. But I would propose reducing it, I believe, oh, here we go, 44,300 was in 2023. I propose we return that. Reason being is in 2024, we put our reserves up to 62.9, but now we have a deficit of 20,000. And I'm sitting back looking at user pay once again, and then the subsidy will come from across the county to fund that reserve. I'm struggling with it. So I'm sitting back going, we need to reduce the reserves here back to the 44.3, I think would be much more reasonable, which of course would drop the deficit as well. And hopefully that we go into a countywide subsidization on water.
So comments from the floor, but I will, Mr. Imtaz has said he's going to get back to us on how those numbers were determined. So I'm going to speak against that idea of making a change based on just a change. Like, why don't we wait and figure out how that's determined and then make a change with information, not just based on something we don't have the right information for. But where is everybody else?
I'm open to adjusting it. I'd just like to know what the calculation is based on first and then make that adjustment. I'm not opposed to adjusting it. I just wanted to see the calculation first.
So it's something we can defer to a future meeting? Is there enough nods heads? Anyone opposed to that? Okay. Other water questions? Seeing none, wastewater. We are at a $294,000 deficit on that one. Any questions on the wastewater budget? Okay, so there's no questions on wastewater. Can we move on to waste management? So there's no revenue there, which is like many things we do. Any questions on those notes? Waste management, well, we're on waste management now, but yeah.
Apologize. We went by a little quick. The transfer to reserves is 0 in 2025, but in 2027, we've jumped to 42.5. So I'm curious, we currently have in the sewer equipment and lines a $542,000 reserve. Why wouldn't we be doing any reserves now for this one, for wastewater services, and then have a great big boost in 2 years?
This is Chair to Councillor Holland. Initially, we had actually budgeted some transferring out of the reserves, but we don't actually have any operating reserves set up for wastewater. So I adjusted that, but we didn't put anything in to be transferred into the reserve, but that can certainly be done if
In a quick follow-up, is the general sewer equipment and lines, is that not the same reserve account for wastewater services?
to the chair to Council Holland, that's specifically for capital addition, so specifically for those lines.
Okay.
Historically, I thought we had put money in reserves to smooth out the maintenance. So in a year with high maintenance, we wouldn't add. In a year with low maintenance, we would either add to it or leave it neutral so that the spend on this can be relatively consistent, but we know that some years there's a bunch of things to do and other years there's less, but.
Mr. Chair, so that would be normally if that would be in operating. So capital is very restricted, so you're limited to only the capital addition. But if we had a operating reserve set up for wastewater, which actually we don't anymore, we used it up, I believe, ending in 2024. But if we did have one, that would be the purpose of it.
So, but moving on to other questions on wastewater.
We have zero reserves there.
I
Is that
think
what I'm
that's what I just heard.
understanding? So is that a concern?
I know there's a reserve fund policy discussion coming back, and I'm content to look at that in the context of a
So we
global
would,
discussion.
we could amend the
Personally,
budget at that time if it's necessary.
budgets are amendable. You just have to decide when you're adding spending in one area, what you're taking away in another. Because once we get to a place where we set the mill rate, we're locked in. Waste management. There's looks like a lot of cleanup of old historic messes. Any questions on that? There's been no changes since we last saw it. But now that you have the notes, has it spurred any new questions? Seeing none, FCSS. There's been a few minor changes to that. Any questions from council? The notes run through to page 86. I know we were told that we would see a utilization report in the future. To me, that would be kind of handy as we're making some decisions to have an idea. Is it funded in a way that, like, as the expense side of this equation grows, or is the funding side following along, and is it something we need to address with our regional partners? But we'll wait and see. Does anyone else have questions? Nope. Okay. Cemeteries. This is very short, no changes since last time. Any questions? Seeing none. We are now at planning and development. Let's pause there because that's a long section. We're on page 89. Why don't we break for, is 20 minutes adequate for lunch? Pardon me? Let's do 20. Okay, 25. So come back at 25 after. let's reconvene the October 22nd special county council meeting. Where we left off, we were at item number 3.3, and we are on page 89. We're about to start looking at the planning and development budget. That's page 89 of your agenda, and the notes are on page 90 and 91. There've been no changes to this since the last time you saw the budget. Are there any questions that arise now that you have access to the notes? Councillor Wallach.
Under 22-21, advertising on
Page
page
90.
90. Are we not advertising in the paper anymore, or does that just get transferred to a different line?
To the chair, to Councillor Wallach, it just got transferred to a different line here. Where did it get transferred? Let me see.
Are we
Sorry, I'm
satisfied at the
just,
table knowing you got moved to a different spot?
yeah, we just moved it. Sorry, I'm just.
Okay.
Two
Mr.
one
President,
five three.
I'm gonna say on behalf of all of us, we appreciate the nimbleness with which you're able to find the last $2,000 on a question for us, so
Yeah, Mr. Chair, yeah, I just found it. It's under 2143. It got moved.
2143, okay.
Registration fees there. We don't actually advertise anything specifically for planning and development, so it's just misallocation.
I don't see 2143 going up from 2024. Sorry, 2043?
2211, is that where we did?
Mr. Chairman, we'll look into it.
Yeah, it's only it's $5,000. I think Councillor Wallach is satisfied that that it's just been moved, and unless anybody else specifically wants that, I don't think you need to spend more time following up. Councillor Holland, your hand is on the button.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. I know we do advertise for planning and development for, public hearings and all of those, kind of things. So would we not want to track that or no?
Mr. Chairman, we'll look into it.
Okay, we're gonna look into it. Ag Services, let's get to page number 92. There's been a couple of changes there since last time. Mr. Mtaz, do you want to talk to them, or do you want to just go to questions?
Mr. Chair, there were no actual budget changes. We just reallocated vehicle and equipment rent to gross recoveries is all we did.
Okay, so it's just moved.
The net amount didn't change.
Thank you. Other questions? Seeing none. We are moving on to recreational services. This is on page 96 of your agenda. The notes are attached. The major change there was the Boyle Fish Pond was changed from a whopping sized budget item down to $30,000 for a conceptual and engagement plan to find out what the community wants there. And that was done at council's direction. Are there further questions? You want the floor?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I also just wanted to mention that we missed factoring in the expense for campsite managers. So you will see the contracted services will go up 90,000 in the next presentation. And also, we need to add 3 additional seasonal workers for mowing crew for 90,000. As currently we are budgeting 12 seasonal workers. However, 3 more are needed to complete the additional mowing for cemeteries.
Yeah. So we're gonna add, 3 more employees, 3 more crews.
Three more seasonal workers, so 90,000 additional for that. So you will see a total change of 180,000 on this budget next viewing.
Councillor Anderson.
On page 98, we have the Boyle Youth and Fitness Center listed as $15,000 contributed annually. But we also had the Boyle Youth Center on page 47 under rec grants for $5,000 annually.
Okay, so you said on page 98, it's at 15, and on page 47, it's listed as rec grants.
Yes. Under rec grants, right above the assist community halls is teen center contributions, which includes Boyle for $5,000. And then back on page 98, transfer to other organizations, the Boyle Youth Fitness Center is 15,000.
Does that have
So-
anything to do with cost sharing of utilities? Or-
Is it just the Boyle Fitness Center is kind of what I'm questioning.
The one, to the chair, to Councillor Anderson, the one in recreation budget, it's specifically Boyle, Fitness Center.
So we should just change the title to take out the youth.
Sure.
Councillor Wallach?
I know when we had spoke before about the spray park, is $23,000 inaccurate? What our budget was, like what our spend was this year, or is that more or less?
CAO, you remember?
Mr. Chairman, in speaking with the Boyle CAO, they still had to get their estimates to us for 25. So when we were at the tri-council meeting, he noted that we should have a meeting coming up with our new intermunicipal committee because he acknowledged that he hasn't got a draft budget to it yet. So
Guess they better hurry before we get ours done. Other questions? So we've just been told that we're gonna see another $180,000 growth on this related to additional mowing and other things. Is there a comment from administration where that money's coming from? Or is it just eroding what we would have put in reserves at the end of the year?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that will just end up reducing what we put to reserve, unrestricted reserve.
Other comments? Okay, moving on to economic development budget. There's been no changes to that. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Library board? We've had the changes there. Councillor Capitano?
Is this where the lobbyist is gonna be put in, or is that somewhere else?
CAO? Question was, any of the money from specific contractors for lobbying or other, is that coming out of economic development? I think we talked about it coming out of somewhere else.
Mr. Chairman, I think we said at the previous meeting that we would, once council's made a decision on that, the final answer would be added to the budget. We would put it in the appropriate place, and I believe we've got a closed session item on lobbyists today, so.
Okay, on the library board, questions? On seeing none. On Athabasca County facilities, this is the new budget sheet that is a consolidation of various items from other places in the budget, which is why there's nothing in 2024. There's been no changes since last time. Are there any questions? Councillor Holland, floor is yours.
Just curious for facilities, being that is this strictly maintenance, or is this something that we also take out of if we need to enhance or add to, or is this strictly maintenance?
To the chair, to Councillor Harland, yes, this is strictly maintenance.
Thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none. We are moving on to page number 105. There are 3 changes there. I don't know, this is the capital projects administration. Do you have, these have been explained in the at the beginning, I guess. Any comments or questions from council? Mr. Taz first.
Mr.
then-
Chair, yeah. So the only changes are the ones you see that are highlighted. Starting with the large mowing program, the tractor, we reduced the amount from 250,000 down to 190,000 because that was initially an error in the budget request.
Okay.
And then as far as the community transportation replacement SUV goes, we've allocated the amount that the village and the town will be paying. You can see that on the further right-hand side column. Initially, we had 12,000 just going from taxation, just paid by us, but now we've split that among the 3 organizations. As far as the Hamlet signage goes, we are recommending that we go ahead with that and Director Wilkinson is here to answer any questions related to the Hamlet signage.
Questions, Counselor Anderson?
Um, I understand not being able to do an entire Hamlet strategy in time for this year's budget, but I would be opposed to putting new signage in one of our hamlets without having a design concept kind of approved by council that would lay the plans for future signage to be added similar to other hamlets. I just think that we kind of need to think a little bit bigger and think of a longer term strategy rather than just jumping the gun and adding signage to one hamlet and then possibly having signage that doesn't match further on down the road. I'd also like, through the chair to administration, when will we see the hard surfacing project matrix? I kind of expected to see that by this meeting. So.
CAO?
Yeah, I'll have to work with Director Whaley on that. Unfortunately, she's away right now, so I don't have an answer for you.
So it would be reasonable to think for the next budget discussion? Maybe?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. It would be reasonable.
You're good? More questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm unsure if a Cape Ceiling pilot or if we want to pursue other projects. I'd really like to see that matrix so we can kind of decide, are we good with just a Cape Ceiling pilot, or do we want to pursue something bigger for the next year? And it's hard to do that without the matrix.
Other questions? Counselor Chemzik, you're on deck.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Looking forward to the matrix, but also with the signage as well. Are we going to be looking at some of the existing signage in our hamlets that are currently already there as models as well? And, and a good strategy and plan of how to replace and when to replace. I'm looking forward to that. Is that something we're going to look for?
Director Wilkinson.
If administration is given the direction by council to do some sort of a hamlet study or to assess all the signage in the hamlets, we certainly can do that, but that's not a short-term project. This particular project was brought forward by some community members that raised funds for a sign in their community. And so we were looking for a decision from council on how they would be part of that solution.
Counselor Mins, then Kapitanek.
I'm just wondering, I might have missed it. Don't see it. Sign, welcome to Athabasca County, coming in on Highway 663 from the east. When are we going to actually put one up? So we actually look like we're advertising ourselves, because I went there this summer and go past a beautiful Lac La Biche sign and turn around and come back, and you still think you're in Lac La Biche because you don't know where the boundary line is. And I think we need to put some money in the budget if it's not there yet and get a sign there.
I think somewhere in here, I believe I saw money for signs.
Mr. Chairman, if I'm not mistaken, council was told at a previous meeting that there's actually still money in 24 for signage that you're talking about. So I'll confirm that, but I was told that as well, as there's still money from 24 that's available. So back to the signage, the other one. So we'll confirm that there's money in 24. If council would like a bit of a quick strategy on, so you can adopt a sign template for the county when someone wants to do that, we will see if we could expedite someone to help us with that. If council passes a motion to that effect, and we'll just find the money from this year's budget and start working on it.
And CAO, so you've said, well, I assume in terms of your administrative resources, this would mean engaging a third party to help make it happen.
Correct. It's a sign company we'll ask for a couple of proposals from a sign company to put together. It's called a wayfinding or branding for our signs, a template that we can use for the next 10, 15 years.
Okay, so administration has told us they're looking for a decision on the Wandering River one. And, you know, potentially if we're interested in making sure they're common, to pass a motion to look for a template so that we can have common signs designed. Now, Councilor Kapitanek?
I think that's reasonable. It's, you know, not all of them have to be done in a day, so start there. They were the community that brought it forward to us and gave us the great idea to try to do it for everybody. But I want to hear, Councillor Mins, we should at least have an Athabasca, welcome to Athabasca County sign at every entrance to our county.
And I do remember seeing that. He's still.
It's,
saying
it is, yeah. That's kind of silly.
Who, Councillor Wallach?
Yeah, I'd be in favor of keeping the Hamlet signage as 30,000, but for all signage or as many as we can do. $30,000 for a sign is a lot of money for a Hamlet sign. So I think that should be the $30,000 for the Hamlet strategy signage. Like that's not for one sign. Like that can't be for one sign.
Mr. Chairman, the 30,000 was suggested by the community group. I think that's why we just plugged the 30,000 into the budget, because they wanted to contribute and build it. That's where the cost came from.
I understand, but I can't see Thorhild County spending $30,000 on their Hamlet signs either. So there has to be a compromise here.
Councillor Holland?
I'm sorry, but the highway number, and I agree with what you're saying, but the highway number south of Boyle going to past Long Lake.
831?
831. That's another one.
Brand new. That's brand new.
Is that one brand new or is that the one that's looking, it looks
Brand
like
new.
the old style? That one. Thank you. It's there, but it's old.
So
Yeah.
they've got a plan though, so let's.
Okay, I
let it-
just wanted to make sure that was mentioned on that plan.
On the Hamlet sign piece, I'm also kind of more of a fan of having a common. They need to be common across all the hamlets, and so if admin says they can engage third-party resources to make that happen and get us a template so they can all look the same. I mean, certainly we should applaud the folks in the community group who've kind of lit the fire under this issue, but also we can't have, in my opinion, it doesn't make sense to have every grouping of houses has their own unique design. I mean, when you drive through other places like Thorhild or Lac La Biche, there's a very, you know, they all have a common uniform look that is nice. And if we're going to put taxation dollars into it, let's do something that lasts. And I guess, sorry, for me, it's common brand, has to look at the Athabasca County and, you know.
I agree with that. Grassland did their Hamlet signage through the Egg Society several years ago. I do have the resource of the name if you guys would like to see what company that was as well.
Okay, so admin is looking for a decision on Wandering River and on potentially a motion for out of the 2024 budget. So that would look something like direct admin to engage.
Yeah, engage a firm to assist with a signage wayfinding strategy for Athabasca County. And in 2024 budget. So for that, Mr. Chairman, we would just move some money around within, there's going to be excess. So with that motion, we'll be allowed to move it around.
Okay, is someone willing to do that? Councillor Wallach? So I'm gonna put the motion on the floor, then give you the speaking, Councillor Mins, if that's okay. So Councillor Wallach has moved a motion to direct administration to engage a firm to assist with a signage wayfinding strategy for Athabasca County from the 2024 budget. Councillor Mins?
So that would be to put a sign in 663 East End?
No, this is about designing, here's the pattern of what they're gonna look like
Okay.
for all the hamlets,
For all the hamlets.
subdivisions, whatever we want to do.
As a separate item, Mr. Chairman, we'll bring back confirmation that I believe council was told that there's still money in the 24 budget for the signage you're asking about.
Okay,
That's actually a separate item,
okay.
and I thought it was already budgeted.
Do
I
we
think
do
I
we need a
remember that.
motion for it? No?
No, you don't need a motion. They'll
Okay.
just bring it back.
As long as we're still talking about it.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to direct administration to engage a firm to assist with signage wayfinding strategy for Athabasca County from the 2024 budget. comments? If you're ready for the question, Councilor Gerlich?
Sorry. My brain the last little while to think if I could figure out a bigger waste of money than $30,000 on a sign that says identifies a hamlet. And just talking to the public, I just said, the county's contemplating putting in signs. One version is 5,000 and one is 12,500. Which do you think you would be in favor of? And it was a resounding neither. If you got that kind of money to throw around, put it towards something more useful.
So the motion is to come up with to engage a firm to assist with a sign wayfinding strategy for the county from the budget. So that, as I understand that, that means they'd come back to us and say, here's a giant foam core option, here's a metal option, these are the choices you have to make. And so the motion is not about building a sign specifically. Is there further comments on the motion? If you're ready for the question on the adoption of that motion, all those in favor? Opposed? Count is 7-1 and the motion is adopted. Now, Director Wilkinson has asked for a decision relating to the Wandering River sign. Would it be reasonable from admin, I'm looking for your advice, but to defer decision on that item until after the results of the most recent motion are in our hands? Because it doesn't make sense to say to them, take your money that you've raised, build a sign that in 6 months, we're going to tell you doesn't look the way we want it to look and you need to replace.
My understanding was we were going to be paying for that sign and that the money they raised could be used in the community elsewhere.
I don't know that we've made a decision, but but in terms of a decision on the current sign, the answer is the right answer then, folks, to table that till after this one. Okay, Leah, Ms. Blair, do you know what was the motion number for the one we just did?
The previous motion was CC 24-478.
Okay, so Councillor Minns has moved to table a decision on the hamlet sign for Wandering River until the results of CC 24-478 are in hand. On tabling motions, there is no discussion on the question of the adoption of that motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Count is 7-1, the motion's adopted. Are there other comments on the capital budget and signs?
When highway is going 2 ways, is there a sign on each end of the hamlet? Or do you put in 2 signs or?
I think that's part of the strategy, honestly. I don't have a personal opinion, but can we leave that for the strategy to come back and tell us what makes sense? Because the hamlet you're thinking of, there's 4 roads that run into it. Doesn't need to make, you just say doesn't need to make sense. Okay, we're still on the capital projects. Any further comments, questions, or things you want to bring up with admin? Seeing none, let's flip the page. Councilor Minns, did you have one more?
Are we is this where we talk about shoulder posts?
Well, that's the next page, I think, isn't it? Nope, the next page is the bridge file, which I don't know if anybody has questions on that quote. And then the shoulder poles come up on page 109.
Okay.
So let's flip the page. We'll get on to page 107. Admin was asked to bring the bridge pricing. Are there any questions? The rounded estimate is $2.127 million. Mr. Imtiaz.
Mrs. Chair, I'll speak to this. The council wanted a breakdown of the cost for the Collington Bridge. Please note that this is 2 years old, this estimate, but that's why our budgeted amount is 2.25 million to factor in for increased costs and inflations. But this just gives council a bit more breakdown of what is going to cost how much for the Collington Bridge. Also, I would like to note that we've spent about 80,000 out of this 2.25 million. That would be on page 108.
Okay.
So that would be any kind of preliminary work that we've done when it comes to decommissioning and design of it.
Further questions? Counselor Holland?
Thank you. And my memory might not be accurate here, but I thought we had budgeted quite a bit more for that and we just didn't spend it. Is that accurate? Because I think, weren't we around 300 for engineering and I thought we were up around 600,000 somewhere.
Oh, it's-
600 and some. So I'm just wondering what's happening with those funds. Did that just go into a general account or is that going against this?
Through the chair to Councillor Holland, not all of the engineering is done. So I believe it's only partial work that has been completed. But yes, it's not going to be the whole amount that we anticipated. So it will be reduced, and at the end of the day, if we end up spending 1.75 million instead of 2.25, yeah, goes to
It's all
unrestricted
good,
reserves.
but yeah,
Yeah.
it just goes into general. the
So we
unrestricted.
had
Okay.
budgeted money in 2024 and some of the work hasn't yet been done, therefore it hasn't yet been spent. Yeah. More questions on that bridge? Seeing no hands, let's move on to page 109. Councillor Minns. After your comments at the last meeting, I see that administration has made some amendments to do approximately 1.5 miles in each county division.
Perfect. Yes, I want to thank you for that, for moving the shoulder pulls around and everything. Couple of questions I have on it. The ones in Division 1, there's a and it's just for the numbers, like the one up on Lee Heights Road. That's actually in Division 4. That's that road is maintained by Division 4. And then, so that only gives Division 1 in a way 1 mile. Gives Division 4 3 miles. So just to confirm that, and then
Well, the division lines run on the north side of the road.
what's that?
It could be that the division lines are running on the
Yeah.
north side of the road, so that's therefore still
Yeah.
in division.
Yeah, exactly. But that's done by.
I mean, it doesn't matter who grades it. We're talking about where the division lines. are.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I just wanted to bring that to the attention, and then my one thing is to ask is, can these shoulder poles be moved? They're destined for these spots, but can they be moved around? Let's say an operator wants to do a mile of road some other place. Or is this wrote in stone?
Mr. Chairman, until we started, they're not written in stone.
Okay. Okay, that's the only thing I want to make sure. Thank you.
Councillor Grilick?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Thank you for looking out for Division 1. But the fact of the matter is Division 1 was the recipient of a significant amount of shoulder pull this year. So we're not complaining.
I don't think it makes any sense just to split hairs when the road is on the boundary between two divisions, but that is one that I missed when I read this. So my question is, who's paying for that one? Because again, that road is, in my opinion, been severely harmed by the oil field traffic that's been using it. And so I don't understand why county ratepayers are paying to fix a road that's been destroyed by industry. Or sorry, it's been damaged by industry. This is a question for admin, Councillor Holland. I'm going to give it to them first.
Mr. Chairman, I'll try to pull it up on my phone while we're talking. I asked our GIS person to compare the proposed shoulder poles with our road use, and she identified only one that conflicted, overlapped. So out of all of them, she only found one that might have an overlap. We're happy to pursue that a little bit more before we finalize this. And you're absolutely right. If we've got the road use agreement and someone else has pounded out the road, the taxpayer should not be fixing it.
Other questions? Councillor Holland?
Thank you. And I appreciate you bringing up road use agreements. It was on my list as well. And maintaining those, and making sure that those are being enforced. I just have one thing that popped into my brain when we were talking about hamlets. And it's some derelict buildings that are basically abandoned. Is there anything in the budget for demoing some of these?
So we're on, let's add that to that's wildly off the topic we're on. Can we just park that till we get to the end.
Yep. I
And
thought
before we
were at
move
the
on
end.
from 3.3, can you, I'll make a sticky note. We'll come back. Is there
Thank you.
questions about the road shoulder posts? Everybody's happy? I mean, it seems to me, Councillor Mins, following up on your comments from last time, when we spread this work out, if the mobilization isn't that expensive, it allows people across the region to see that there is work happening in their neighborhood. And okay, we've already discussed the water rate stuff earlier. Oh, look at that, Councillor Holland. I've got a sticky note here that says you wanted to bring up demolition of garbage buildings in hamlets.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just curious, being that there are some that, you know, have been there for very many years, they're eyesores. They're creating a lot of attention for undesirable attention for tearing them apart and vandalism and all the rest of that kind of hullabaloo, not to mention what it looks like in our hamlets. And if we're trying to attract people to our hamlets, I'm hoping that there is money in the budget to clean some of that up.
I guess to collateral to that, are we allowed to clean up somebody else's garbage buildings on their property? But you know, maybe that's.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I mean, we can certainly, if it's a property that we own free and clear and it's a county property, we should probably budget for some of that cleanup. If it's a county property that's been taken through tax recovery, we can actually add those costs back on the tax roll of the property. So you don't necessarily need to budget for it because you should get it back through the proceeds of the sale. And lastly, if you're forcing someone else through a cleanup order under the MGA to do it, and they are not complying, you're allowed to put that cost on the tax roll of the property also. So there's a reason we don't necessarily have an envelope of money for that, but we certainly could. We'd probably just park it in administration somewhere. But a lot of these are those two categories where it's someone else and they actually have to, they should be doing the cleanup. We would do it if they don't comply and add it to the tax roll of the property.
Thank you. Just as a quick follow-up, we do own some of those properties. For example, in Collington, there's a couple of properties owned by the county that look like they could, you know, so that's what I was curious, if there is an amount that we could add to the budget.
Yeah, Mr.
If
Chairman,
council is
so those
interested.
ones we own and they're tax recovery. So we would spend the money, but it would go on the tax roll of the property and we would recover that money when the land is sold. Therefore, a lot of times you don't budget for that. Whatever the cost is, you recover. So that's the distinction. If we had a separate property that was not tax recovery, it was just the county, say the county had a public works building in one of the hamlets and we're not selling it. We're not doing anything. We just want to clean it up. We absolutely need a budget for it because there's no chance of recovery of that money. So, but we can absolutely include a pocket of money to address that.
So administrative costs for doing those types of things, you know, organizing the, you know, talking with the people who need to do the cleanup, or for that matter, you know, I'm just trying to make sure that we are focused on it and that we do have some.
That is addressed by the Municipal Government Act. It allows us to take, I believe, a 5% admin fee when we sell a tax recovery property. It's all laid out by the MGA.
Mr. Imtaz, I had promised you the floor when we got to the end of item
Yes.
3.3, in case there's any follow-up you wanted to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to take us back to airport budget, page 75. Wanted the council to note that we missed increasing snow plowing and ice removal maintenance by 12,000. So next time you will see it increase to a total of 35,000 from 23,000 to factor in fertilizer for de-icing runaway. So
That's under point 26.
2960, yeah, page 75 under point 2960. But that was the only main thing left.
Good.
Thank you.
I know it's it's obviously a big process in getting all the little bits together. Was that just the only one?
That's correct.
Thank you. So administration has been given the mind of council through the discussion today. We've tested ideas for change, and I think you've got clear direction, more or less, CAO.
Yes, we do, Mr. Chairman.
It would be appropriate to seek a motion to receive this for information. Councillor Wallach. Councillor Wallach has moved that the council accepts 2025 operating count and capital budget follow-up report as information. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none on the question of the adoption of that motion, all those in favor? Opposed? The count is 8-0 and the motion is adopted. For the administrative team, I want to thank you guys for being in here. I know it's kind of a burning up of your day, but it's also important for us when you're able to answer the questions directly and get specific information. So I appreciate you spending the time with us. We are at item number 3.4, transitional housing project. Councillor Anderson, do you want to speak to this or make a motion?
I'd like to recommend a motion in your theme.
Councillor Anderson would like to make a motion to direct administration to report to the November 14th special county council meeting outlining whether the conditions set by council resolution 23-712 have been met and what funding may be required for this project in 2025. Is there any discussion on that? Councillor Holland?
So just so I'm understanding, all of this is going to be coming back. All of the conditions, thank you, will be reviewed of what is owing to us as far as reporting is concerned, et cetera, et cetera. Is that everything or just certain items in the agreement?
I don't understand the question.
Well, there's certain areas in the agreement that they were asked for reporting on quarterly. There's other things that are mentioning in the agreement that
Well, this is the resolution is written right up above on the package.
Yep.
To and so it's to get the reporting that's required is how I understand that, but
I just want to make sure that all conditions are coming back that are supposed to be met, that we will be discussing in that agreement.
other questions, comments? Question of the adoption of that motion?
Can I-
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Do you want to, is there anyone else who would like to speak? Councillor Anderson, the final word, and then I'll call the question.
Thank you. I think council set some really specific conditions in this motion and as part of this project. And I think prior to passing our next budget, we deserve the opportunity to assess the use of this asset. And I think part of that is seeing those quarterly financial statements, but also the proposed annual budget for the next year prior to us passing our budget. I just think for transparency purposes, our council deserves to see that. And so I wanted to make sure that that didn't just fall off the radar.
On the question of the adoption of the motion to direct administration to report to the November 14th special county council meeting, outlining whether the conditions set by council resolution 23-712 have been met and what funding may be required for this project in the 2025 budget. All those in favor? Opposed? Count is 8-0. That motion is adopted. It would be in order to receive a motion to enter closed session. Councillor Minns has moved to council enter a closed session discussion on the question of the adoption of that motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Count is 8-0. And the motion is adopted. We are going to reconvene. We left closed session. Counselor Ehrlich made a motion to exit closed session. The count was 8-0, and that motion was adopted. Counselor Kapitanek, are you ready to come back? Counselor, regarding item number 5.1, Counselor Wallach has made a motion to direct administration to book a meeting with the North Central Region staff from Transportation and Economic Corridors on November 4th, 2024. Is there any further discussion on that item? Seeing none on the question of the adoption of that motion, all those in favor? Opposed? The count is 8-0, and that motion is adopted. Regarding item number 5.2, Councillor Chamzik was going to make a motion to receive that item for information, that update, to receive the update for information. Is that correct? Okay. On the question of the adoption of that motion, all those in favor? Opposed? Count is 8-0, and that motion is adopted. Councillor Holland indicated that you would like to make a motion to invite the MLAs that serve our county to a county council meeting at their convenience. Any further discussion on that item? Seeing none, on the question of the adoption of that motion, all those in favor? Opposed? The count is 8-0, and that motion is adopted. Regarding item 5.3, Councillor Holland, you would like to make a motion to rescind motion CC 24-470 and to receive this item for information. Is there any discussion on that item? On the question of the adoption of that item, all those in favor? Opposed? That motion is adopted. So this concludes the business of our meeting today, except for one comment which I wanted to make, which is a reminder for all of us that it's a privilege, in my opinion, for us to serve at this table, and it's a privilege that must be earned, and I think we've all earned that. But once earned, there's an obligation for us to do something good with that opportunity. As members of council, we're here to make change and to leave our organization better than before, and to work with our conviction to make this region better, not just for some, but for all. And so thinking about that, I think we should not be settling for mediocrity, but strive for excellence. Our lives and our time is too short, and there's too much to be done to squander our time on trivial matters. So I'm convinced that we have more in common than the things that separate us. It's time that we need to focus on matters, not on the things that divide us, but on our common interest. Our time remaining here is short. We're in the last 12 months, and the choice that each of us has to make is how we choose to spend it and what positive outcomes we can achieve before the end of the term. So our next meeting is the org meeting, and the next choice we need to make is who will sit as Reeve for the final year. While it's been a privilege for me to serve in this capacity, today is the final meeting I'll chair as Reeve. We will need to elect someone different on October 31st. Thank you for your participation in the meeting today, and we are adjourned.